All right, folks, I'm just confirming everything here. I want to make sure that we are live streaming. The stuff doesn't cooperate the way that you hope. The stuff doesn't cooperate the way that you hope. There's my stupid voice. All right, that's how we turn the volume off. There we go. So I can confirm that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Relief Valve podcast. It is the September 29th. I've lost all track of time since I've been out on my injury. So it could be the 29th of the year 2 billion, and I wouldn't fucking know. So let's jump right into the show here because there's a lot of news. And let's go to the upcoming port strike that's coming up. East Coast port strike looms for the first time since 1977. Here's what to know. So thousands of dock workers at every major East and Gulf Coast port are girding to strike early next week, threatening to close trade gateways that handle about half of all goods shipped in containers in and out of the U.S. Negotiations between the union representing dock workers and a shipping industry group representing terminal operators and ocean carriers have been stalled for months, with both sides this week issuing conflicting statements about their willingness to bargain. The United States Maritime Alliance, the USMX, has filed an unfair labor practice with the National Labor Relations Board requesting immediate injunctive relief, requiring the union to resume bargaining so we can negotiate a deal, the alliance said Thursday. So to clarify, you guys, with you folks, I'm a union member. And so the Maritime Alliance, not with these fucking dock workers, but the Maritime Alliance is the company itself. And it's actually using the NLRB, which is it's an intermediary between both sides, between the company, between the union itself. And also it's to help with if for individual workers like myself, if you feel like the union is not doing the proper job, you can also contact the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board. You can ask them to look into an issue of your union not doing their job. So both sides can use this as an intermediary, essentially. So what they're saying here is the company itself has filed an unfair labor practice with the NLRB, requesting immediate injunctive relief, requiring the union to resume bargaining. So their claim is the union is not bargaining in good faith and putting the proper effort in to do this. So that's really interesting. Whether they're doing that just to, gunk up the works and make this more difficult or what it is will remain to be seen, but we'll continue here. The NLRB confirmed it had received the unfair labor practice charge, which is being docketed by its regional office in Newark, New Jersey. The charge will appear on the agency's website in the next few days, after which an investigation would begin. USMX's appeal to the NLRB was derided as another publicity stunt. So we'll see if that's what it is, just to slow the gears down. By the International Longshoremen's Association, foreign-owned companies represented by USMX set up a shop in the American ports, earn billions of dollars in revenues and profits, take these profits out of country, and fail to adequately compensate the ILA longshore workforce for their labor, are engaging in a real unfair labor practice, the union said in a statement Thursday. So there's a middle ground here where all of this has the potential to be true. Top Biden administration officials, including Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, because he'd be judging your boyfriend's booty, and he's not happy with what he sees. He is a professional, useless person. He's done absolutely nothing in the position. He's just a gay guy who got a job, and that's super exciting that a gay guy got a job. Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su and Lael Brainard, director of the National Economic Council, met with USMX members on Friday, urging them to negotiate ahead of the contract expiring. Experts say a shutdown could severely hamper the flow of goods and raise shipping costs. Any spike in such expenses could be passed on to consumers. Of course it will be. Just as U.S. inflation normalizes and even potentially hinder the Federal Reserve as it finally pivots to lowering interest rates. Here's what to know about the labor fight, which could be the first mass work stoppage at Eastern ports in nearly a half century. The dispute involves a contract covering tens of thousands threatening to strike at ports from Massachusetts to Texas if a new labor deal with the USMX isn't reached before the current contract expires at midnight on September 30th. So this is happening tomorrow if they don't come to an agreement, and it doesn't look like they are. So this is happening tomorrow. A walkout would be the first East Coast dock strike since 1977. A total of 14 ports involving some 25,000 workers could be affected by the strike, according to USMX. Baltimore, Boston, Charleston, South Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida, Miami, Houston, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, New York, New Jersey, Norfolk, Virginia, Philadelphia, Savannah, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, and Wilmington. I feel like they said Florida several times just to emphasize that. Florida, Miami, Houston, Mobile, New Orleans, New York, New Jersey, Norfolk, Georgia, Tampa, Florida, Georgia, Florida, Tampa. How many fucking docks do they got? But because the economic activity in ports touches a range of businesses, such as warehousing and transport, the fallout from work stoppages could put more than 100,000 employees temporarily out of work, according to economists. Union workers at ports in the East Coast and Gulf Coast earn a base wage of $39 an hour after 6 hours on the job. So what do they get in the first 5? That is significantly less than their unionized West Coast peers, who make $54 an hour. Holy fuck, I thought I was making good money. I make $45. These motherfuckers are making $54. Why the fuck didn't I become a dock worker? A rate that will increase to $60.85 in 2027. These are basically, they're getting paid as nurses and doctors, and they're hauling shit at a fucking dock. Well, they're like, hey, Vinny, what the fuck are you doing over there? I don't know. What the fuck are you yelling at me for? And they're getting paid $60 for this shit. Unfucking believable. Fuck, we got fucked in our contract. Assuming a 40-hour work week, West Coast port workers are making more than $116,000 a year versus $81,000 for their counterparts in the East. Well, understand that a bunch of West Wing cunts are making $60, $54 an hour, and the East Coast is getting fucked. I can understand where this is coming from. This fucking bullshit. The ILA's initial demands include a 77% wage hike over a 6-year contract, with the labor group arguing that the increased pay would make up for the surge in U.S. inflation in recent years. The USMX in August offered what it called an industry-leading pay hike, but the sides remain far from apart. Mark my words, we'll shut them down October 1st if we don't get the kind of wages we deserve, Harold Daggett, president of the ILA, said earlier in this month. It sounds like a terrorist group, but it's just the union. Yet the differences are not only overpay. To protect job security, the ILA is demanding a complete ban on the automation of cranes, gates, and container movements used in the loading or unloading of cargo. Here's the issue here with this. And keep in mind, I'm a union member when I'm saying this. Let me rehydrate. Here's a problem with this. It's a catch-22. The world is moving towards advanced technology and automation. It's going to be machines doing everything for you, right? It's going to be iRobot. It's going to be Star Wars. It's going to be all of this shit as we come into the future. It's going to be robots and automated machines working in conjunction with AI or controlled with AI, so the Terminators will kill us all. But in the meantime, they're going to take over the automation. And the problem is with this, and again, bear in mind I'm a union member. You can fight back against this tidal wave. You can't stop it. And I understand what they're trying to do, because within my own company, we try to do the same. I work for UPS, and we're fighting against the automation that's already here, automating our buildings, and more automation is coming as time goes on. And from the business standpoint of these major owners, the most convenient thing is automating your entire process. Machines that don't sleep, machines that don't take a lunch break, machines that don't complain and file grievances and jump on you because there's something happened that you don't like. The unfortunate reality, which is a positive and a negative for all of human society, is that automation is on the horizon. And this is the problem. The unions are fighting back against that because they're fighting for the human being and the necessity of having the human being there to do that job. And the companies are pushing for the human being is inefficient and let's get a machine in there to run it and everything will run better and the cost for everything will drop because a machine's running it. The only thing they have to do when they have all the machines is maintain them, which you'll need a handful of human beings to do. And those things will run 24/7 and you won't have to do anything else with them. So the battle of automation and again, I for you know, I'm that much closer to retirement being in my 40s and doing this job for almost 30 years. But for the generation coming in behind me, you're in a very difficult spot because automation is right on the cusp of taking over. And it's doing it across the board in multiple jobs, in multiple avenues of commerce throughout the United States and throughout the world. So this is going to be a very difficult argument and negotiation that the union is doing with this with the USMSC or whatever the fuck it is, saying we don't want automation. We want a ban, 100% ban on the automation of cranes, gates, and containers movements used in the loading or unloading of cargo. So they're saying we want to keep our human beings, our union employees, in these positions to keep doing these jobs. And the company's saying, you know, we have the ability to streamline this, to make it a lot more efficient. And we're going to downsize and move your employees somewhere else. So the problem with this argument is this is going to turn into a big battle. And as my girlfriend can tell you, who went to the store earlier today to buy supplies, people are already panicking. Is turning into a COVID style situation where she went to Walmart and all of the shelves are being cleared of toilet paper, paper towels, essentials that you're going to use in your house. You know, everybody's back to being afraid that you can't get anything. You're going to shit yourself every day and you're not going to have toilet paper, the stupid stuff. It generally, as I've seen this hit, it generally takes about 30 days for the impact of this to hit consumers. So you're not going to run out of supplies right now. Folks that are going out there and they're panicking. If you want to bulk up a little bit of your household, go ahead. I get it. But you still got a month. There's a lag that comes with these strikes and with the lack of supplies coming into the country or into any zone. It is not immediate. I know for the consumer, you go, they're striking tomorrow, I'm fucked tomorrow. You're not. All of the companies and the docks have been pushing as much product in to the supply area as they possibly can because they're aware that this strike was coming. So it's going to take a month to even 2 months before you start seeing a strain on the supply chain. So don't go buy all of the toilet paper in your local BJ's and screw everybody else out. As much as I enjoyed the memes and they cracked me up when I was reading them during COVID, please don't do that. But we'll continue. The Maritime Alliance has said it offered to maintain provisions in the current contract, barring fully automated terminals, while also banning use of semi-automated equipment in a new labor agreement. Unable to bridge the divide, the ILA in June suspended negotiations with USMX, saying the use of the automated gates to let trucks enter ports without ILA labor violated its existing labor agreement. So they want some asshole to be like, "Oh, you just showed up, huh? Show me the fucking paper. All right, I'm going to press the button. The gate's open." They want to have that fucking guy there. So the union's saying you got to have a human being to press a button and open the gate for you instead of an automated system where you come up and scan an ID or something and the gate opens and you go in. So union's playing hardball. I get it. I'm a union member too, and you want as many of your brothers and sisters to hold some sort of job as well. But as far as the the importance of having some asshole in a shack press a button for you, you don't necessarily need that. But they're playing hardball, and that's what it's turning into. The ports that could close in a strike handle more than 68% of all containerized exports in the U.S. and roughly 56% of containerized imports, according to industry data. So half of the network is going to be affected by this, or over half. So even a short strike would cause significant disruptions in regional trade flows. A strike would reduce U.S. economic activity by between 4.5 billion and 7.5 billion for every week it continues. That affects the rich fat cats more than it does anybody else. According to analysis at Oxford Economics, the investment research firm estimates it would take up to a month to clear the backlog of shipments that pile up while ports remain shut. So that's true. There's going to be a huge backlog. When they figure it out and they get back on track and they resolve it, they're going to come in and they're going to be working crazy overtime in order to get all of those shipments out. Maybe they'll bring in some scabs, which are non-union people, to come in and help run the ports while the union's on strike, and whatever else they can come up with. But they're still going to be behind no matter what. Although West Coast terminals could absorb some cargo diverted by Eastern ports, they couldn't handle it all, nor could the U.S. rail system, experts say. Should a strike persist longer than a month or so, some companies could face shortages of parts and other inputs. Much of the raw materials that go into a range of products flow through the East and Gulf Coast ports, such as cotton, wood, and copper. The auto and pharmaceutical industries, which could maintain lean inventories, could be affected, while port shutdowns in Miami and Norfolk could affect tobacco companies. In addition, a strike could hamper shipments of products such as bananas, manufacturing components, and plywood, interrupting the flow both of consumer goods and industrial parts for factories. Fresh meat and other refrigerated food could spoil, resulting in shortages and increased prices, which, if anything, as far as the food spoiling and having stuff from, why we're getting food from overseas when our farmers in the United States could help to provide and maintain for this country. And it's not the farmers' faults at all. It's the restrictions that come on them. It's the seeds that they're forced to use. I remember when I was still on TikTok before they fucked me over and banned my account. I followed a couple of farmers on there, and they were talking about how there are seeds from seed grain companies that you'd end up making an agreement with and negotiating to buy, and you would have to buy only theirs. You could not use anything else. And they were talking about the difficulties of, if you had a farmer on the property next to yours, and of course you got the wind and you got weather elements, and leftover seed or anything from their property that was different from yours would end up getting blown or transferred over to your property. And then the company that you brought your seeds from, which you had to exclusively use to grow and buy from, if they came and did a search of your farm and your grain, and they found the foreign seeds from your other the neighboring farms property, you still ran into a problem from a property that has nothing to do with you. And you would run into an issue with that seed provider, with them claiming that you're violating the contract negotiation by using outside seeds instead of specifically using their own. It is ridiculous what the farming industry has turned into, and how they tie farmers' hands behind their backs. That's why with this show, when I'm able to grow it down the road and really have a support base, all of the shows tend to, podcasts or political podcasts or whatever, they tend to lean towards one thing or another that they feel strongly about or they support, right? Maybe some people like cars, or they like electric, or they like helping food banks, or something like that. So as they do events and they do different things, they'll push towards having that endeavor. For me, I want to eventually be able to help and donate and be part of helping local farmers, because they should be able to be left alone in order to provide the needs of the nation without us worrying that with a Docker strike, we're not going to be able to ship in the food and grain and everything that we need from these fucking companies or whatever else. They shouldn't have to worry about that. The farmers should be able to grow and seed as necessary using fresh, healthy product, not GMOs and shit and seeds that were created in a factory so they can grow in whatever situation without bugs or without anything else bothering them. But then they're also a harm to human beings as well. There's the long-term studies that are coming out are ridiculous. So we need to, the farmers need to be able to get back to natural farming and not be forced to use these artificial seeds and make these deals with the devil with these seed companies that provide them everything. But I'm digressing with that with the farmers, but let's continue. Although should a strike persist longer than a month or so, some companies could face shortages of parts and other inputs. Much of the raw materials that go into a range of products flow through the East and Gulf Coast and blah, 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 Miami, Norfolk, tobacco. In addition, a strike could hamper shipments of products such as bananas, manufacturing components, and plywood, interrupting the flow of consumer goods and industrial parts for factories. Fresh meat and other refrigerated food could spoil, resulting in shortages and increased prices. I think everyone here is a bit nervous about it, said Mia Ginter, director of North American Ocean Shipping for C.H. Robinson, a logistics company. The rhetoric this time with the ILA is a level we haven't seen before. And the reason I think that you're getting the most of that is two factors. One, the East Coast is looking at what the West Coast is getting paid. And second, it's a threat of automation. These are the two primary fighting points. And the corporation might be willing to give them the money they want, but the automation is going to be where they get bogged down in, because they're going to say, well, we get where you're coming from, but we have to start being able to automate the simple shit, opening and closing gates, moving this thing there to this thing over there. They're going to want to get their foot in the door with automating the simple shit and not having one guy in a guard shack press a button, open a door for a tractor trailer coming in. They want to be able to automate that completely, get them in there and just make the process more fluid. So in my opinion, as a union member, they're not going to get bogged down with the increase in their hourly rate. They're going to get bogged down with the automation. The labor dispute also comes at a time when the Federal Reserve is closely monitoring the labor market for signs of weakening. In principle, the Fed should look through any temporary weaknesses, but it might be difficult to separate the noise from the signal. Therefore, the strike would increase the odds of another 50 basis point cut in November. Grace Zweimer, associate U.S. economist, Oxford Economics, wrote in a Thursday research note. By contrast, consumers probably wouldn't notice shortages of store goods during the holiday shopping season. As I said, it could take a month to even 3 months, depending on what they're suggesting here, as most products are already housed in warehouses after being transported ahead. Jonathan Chappell, Senior Managing Director of U.S. Transportation at Evercore ISI, an investment research firm, said a strike would not mean Santa's not showing up. Imports to U.S. ports are running 10% ahead of where they were last year, indicating that some cargo has been shipped and expectations of the strike. And I said that earlier on in the article. The companies are already aware that they were on their way to that. They weren't making any headway. They've pushed everything through ahead of a time. You've actually got a 10% overage as opposed to we're dead even and we're running behind. So people are panicking, and you don't need to do that. There's one thing I can stress is don't screw the rest of us over and buy all the toilet paper and all the wipes and all the fucking paper towel and everything. You don't need to do it. Everything is still in stock. It's going to take a month to 3 months before you start running low on all that. Imports to the U.S. ports are running 10% ahead. Many retailers have already taken steps to mitigate the potential impact of a strike by bringing in products earlier or shifting products to the West Coast, said Jonathan Gold, Vice President of Supply Chain and Customs Policy at the National Retail Federation. Still, given the complexity and interconnectedness of global supply chains, Even a minor disruption would have a negative impact and cause delays at a critical time for both retailers and consumers. That's just fear porn. The ILA on Wednesday said its members would continue to handle all military cargo in the event of a strike and would also continue to work passenger cruise vessels so as to not inconvenience the tens of thousands of Americans who book trips in advance. So as far as from the union's point of view, that's a huge thing right there. They're still, despite a strike, they're still making a commitment to handle military cargo when it comes in, into not inconvenience the rich older cunts that are all on cruise ships. They're going to make sure you get your fucking supplies too, so you can still take your fucking cruise, and you can still complain about the circumstances on ship that you were absolutely unhappy with. Fucking ridiculous. They're still gonna cater to the cruise ships. Fucking shut them down. If a strike were deemed to threaten national health or safety under the Taft-Hartley Act, President Dementia Joe could seek a court order for an 80-day cooling off period. So any president has the ability, if the strike affects huge ramifications to transport, supply, or things of kind of a national security, it will affect it. For us in UPS, because of the major amount of shipping that we do as well, which is also medical supplies in addition to regular supplies and items for all of Americans and around the world, the president can intervene and force the two parties together to make an agreement, because a shutdown of that magnitude can affect the entire United States economy and global economy as well. So they can force you to go back. Reagan in the past has done the same thing with the Air Traffic Controllers Union, where it was grounding all flights. No one could travel. This is 1980s. He was able to step in and force both parties back to the negotiating table and make them come to an agreement. Dementia Joe didn't do that with the rail workers strike. He stayed out of it, and I think the rail workers didn't really end up getting what they wanted. He I don't know if he forced everybody back to the table, but he also didn't step in and intervene to help either or. So the rail workers union, I know, was not happy about what they got. And now Dementia Joe here is going to be in a tough situation because he's going to have to step in. They're hoping for the union's support, not him anymore, but Comrade Kamala is. And many of us as the individual members, and this is where you've got to look at everything, and you've got to understand what's happening behind the scenes. When you're saying that locals in Florida, in Kentucky, or in wherever have said they're voting for Kamala, that's the suits in the local who are saying they voted for Kamala. The rest of us workers, thousands upon thousands of workers, we already took an individual poll through the union, and we said we're supporting Trump. So the locals are claiming that they're going for Harris, but don't be tricked by that, because that is not the individual members. That's like 5 assholes that wear suits in the local, the business agents, the secretary treasurer, the president, and the secretary recorder. Like, those sellouts are going for Comrade Kamala. The workers themselves, they're way outnumbered by them. The workers themselves have voted like 65%. They're going for Trump. So we already had our vote by telephone, by internet. And I know some people are nervous about saying what they support and what they don't. I have no qualm about it whatsoever. I've been vocal the entire time. I've been for Trump. I've always been for Trump. And I tell anybody that I talk to within my union and within my local that I'm voting for Trump. But when these other locals are saying they're voting for Kamala, it's the higher up assholes in the suits that are making their own independent thing. Or maybe like 5 people showed up to a union meeting and they voted because no one else bothered to show up. And those 5 people said, we want to vote Democrat. So they're able to officially say from that point at that meeting that there was a majority vote and we decided to vote for Kamala. But really, you need to poll your entire local whether they're able to show up to that union meeting or not. And you need them to have their voices told. That's why the phone call and the internet voting was so important, because you got everybody that doesn't make all the meetings. For people like myself, I get sick of going to the meetings and seeing the infighting. The guys that are in office claim they're doing an awesome job. Everything's great. And the rest of us at the meeting are going, we're hearing shit and we know that's bullshit. You guys aren't doing a good job. And for representing us, you're not doing a good job. We know it because we're going through the shit. And then we go to rely on you and you're not there. So there's a big difference between the local saying that they're voting for Kamala and the individual members who are saying that, no, they're not. So continue on here. If a strike were deemed to threaten national health or safety, under the Taft-Hartley Act, President Joe Biden could seek a court order for an 80-day cooling off period. Although a Biden administration official tells CBS News that the U.S. Labor Department is monitoring the situation and has been in touch with the sides, there are currently no plans to get involved with the talks. We've never invoked Taft-Hartley to break a strike and are not considering doing so now, the White House told CBS. By contrast, the Biden administration has in recent years intervened to resolve potentially disruptive labor disputes. In 2022, Mr. Biden and Congress stepped in to prevent a railroad strike. See, he fucked the railroad workers, with the president signing legislation crafted by lawmakers to impose a tentative deal on dozens of unions representing 115,000 workers. In 2023, Acting Labor Secretary Julie Su played a key role in brokering a deal to avert a strike and broker a new labor deal for West Coast dock workers. The union's leverage is also stronger ahead of the presidential election as candidates vie for the labor vote, and with visions of clogged ports and product shortages during the pandemic still in voters' minds. If ever there was a time that labor can get what they want, Stifles Nolan said, it's right now. Some observers think that when push comes to shove, Mr. Biden would act to prevent the walkout. And the Democrats are going to have to do this because with the election coming up and the dock workers all go on strike and stay on a sustained strike, this is going to be a bad look for the Democrats because the Democrats are currently in office and they're the ones should be doing their best to avoid this happening. So this is going to be a shot up the ass for them. And I'm here for it because fuck the Democrats. They're destroying this country. It's unlikely that the U.S. government would intervene as promptly as Canada did in the labor dispute that shut down the country's rail traffic last month, when the Canadian government ordered railroads to enter binding arbitration less than a day in, noted Zwemer at Oxford Economics. And we know that if you're following anything from Canada with Justin Trudeau, who's just a fucking scumbag communist, they're forcing everything on everybody in Canada. Canada is basically the Soviet Union, essentially, at this point. The potential strike at Eastern Gulf Coast ports is unlikely to trigger any major economic disruption because we strongly suspect that this close to the election, and despite denials ahead of time, President Biden would have little choice but to step in and invoke back-to-work legislation, analytics at Capital Economics wrote. So I believe that is probably going to happen because it's going to hurt the Democrats a lot, and they don't want that. So speaking of scumbag Democrats, old Eric Adams here is in some trouble. He's been targeted by his party or by real allegations, which really have plagued him since he ran for office. I know early on, or currently what's happening is they have tried to claim that the Democrats are targeting him because he's speaking out against the illegals that are in New York. And now this is like retribution against him. In my opinion, I disagree with this. I think the charges against him are real. He had corruption charges. He had corruption allegations. And he had other allegations of taking money from foreign sources back when he was running for mayor of New York. And now it's solidifying more. So I absolutely believe he's a scumbag who has done all of this, and it's just the chickens are coming home to roost on this one. He's another scumbag Democrat that runs off the system, lines his pockets, does whatever he wants. It works out best for him, and then tries to claim, oh, woe is me, and clutches pearls when things go wrong. So here he is coming to answer to reporters about what's going on. And I'll be right back. Good. All right, is that it? It went out. Where's his? Sorry, folks. Bear with me 1 second here. Didn't start. Didn't run. Didn't want to run. Fox sucks dick. Let's go to. Give me 1 second here. We're gonna go to the charges on Mayor Adams. Now, what the fuck is this? All right, let's see what they have to say here. Shut the fuck up. Okay, that's an old one. That was just to see what they have to say here while I look at the rest. Okay, here we go. Sorry, guys. Stupid commercial. Give me a second here. Okay, so we've got that, and his backup, his lieutenant governor, is some, and that's what I was trying to look up. And it's not being specific here. It's some shitbag radical Black Lives Matter supporter who's been involved in riots. This guy right here, this shitbag, Jumaine Williams, would become the acting mayor if Eric Adams resigns or is removed from office. He has multiple arrests. He supported the Black Lives Matter rioters and just domestic terrorists. He'll be even worse if that's possible than Adams or anybody else who's been in office. Should the mayor eventually acquiesce to the resignation calls, it would set off a rather chaotic search for a successor. According to the New York Charter, if there's a mayoral vacancy, the public advocate, in this case, Jumaine Williams, becomes the acting mayor. Williams has no more than 3 days upon taking office in the acting capacity to call a special mayoral election. But there is a wide flexibility as to when that special election would or could occur. Much of it depends on the election calendar, explained Professor Stephen Lewis, adjunct professor at the Council at New York Law's School Center for New York City and State Law. There are many different scenarios depending on where you are in a particular term or office and where you are in the calendar year, Lewis said. Many factors will determine when the special election could be held, such as how far the mayor is into his own term, or even if an election day falls on a holiday. Williams would call a special election, but we're basically talking about something that within a 2 to 3 month window, very approximately. If for some reason Williams cannot serve as mayor, Lander would be the next in line to fill the position per the city charter. And like I said, the guy's a radical. He'll be even worse for New York than it already has been. So coming back to the home front here, we've got an abuse of power by Dementia Joe and Comrade Kamala. And that's been the House GOP opens a probe into the Ukrainian president's trip to a battleground state. This was really odd that Volodymyr Zelensky decided to come to the United States to sign bombs from a factory, a weapons factory, and decided to go to a battleground state in Pennsylvania in order to do it. So you're seeing what appears to be direct election interference by an outside source, which is the corrupt leadership of Ukraine. Vladimir Zelensky is absolutely corrupt. He's a scumbag, and he's in the pocket of the Democratic Party and vice versa. So he goes to a battleground state where there's a huge fight happening here where, you know, Trump is making headway in Pennsylvania, and the Democrats absolutely need it to win. If they lose Pennsylvania, their chances are extremely low. They lose Pennsylvania, lose Michigan, lose Arizona. They're done. It's over for Comrade Kamala. So Pennsylvania has been right in the limelight. The House Oversight Committee is investigating the Biden-Harris administration's alleged use of taxpayer-funded resources, more taxpayer money being wasted on Vladimir Zelensky to fly Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky to battleground Pennsylvania ahead of the November presidential election, Fox News Digital has learned. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer from Kentucky penned letters to the White House, the Pentagon, and the Justice Department on Wednesday seeking documents regarding the administration's alleged misuse of government resources to allow Zelensky to allegedly interfere in the 2024 presidential election. In 2019, the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives impeached President Donald Trump for abuse of power under the theory that he attempted to use a foreign leader, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, to benefit his 2020 presidential campaign, despite a lack of any evidence of wrongdoing on the part of President Trump, Comer wrote. So if you remember at that time, President Trump was calling Vladimir Zelensky, and he was looking into info that Biden, at the time vice president, was working with Barack Hussein Obama in order to push them into getting rid of their DA, who was looking at corruption charges in the country, to kick him out of office. And if they did do that, then the United States would give them money that they really needed. That and Biden was holding that over their heads. He was there as vice president at the time. He was threatening them with it. And he said that, him and Obama would make sure they didn't get the money. They got rid of the prosecutor. They got rid of the DA that was working on the corruption case. And then Biden and Obama decided to release the money for them and make it available. So, again, Volodymyr Zelensky working with the Democratic Party, he's been in their pocket and vice versa for a while now. Trump was looking into that corruption, and they tried to pin it on him as election interference. Now you actually have election interference. by a scumbag like Zelensky showing up in a battleground state in the United States, which he has no business to be in at all. And he shows up to sign bombs and do this PR bullshit and stick his nose where it doesn't belong while advocating for the support of the Democratic Party. This is 100% election interference. So Comer, though, said the Biden-Harris administration recently flew the same foreign leader, Ukrainian President Zelensky, on an American taxpayer-funded flight to Pennsylvania, a battleground state in the upcoming 2024 presidential election, which has been described as the trickiest battleground for Vice President Kamala Harris to win. The committee seeks to determine whether the Biden-Harris administration attempted to use a foreign leader to benefit Vice President Harris' presidential campaign, and if so, necessarily committed an abuse of power, Comer wrote. And it clearly is. Comer said his committee is investigating the circumstances that led to justify the administration's transport of Zelensky on a Department of the Air Force aircraft to Pennsylvania. Comer said Zelensky's itinerary included a stop in Pennsylvania to meet with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Comer also cited a recent interview with Zelensky in which he was critical of Trump and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, calling the Ohio senator too radical. This is the scumbag Zelensky saying this about our leadership, about who we're voting for president. This corrupt scumbag is coming over here to this country to talk about who's running, who's in office, and who's running, and his thoughts on it. Like any American should give a shit what the corrupt leader of Ukraine thinks about what's going on in the United States. He further stated that his belief that President Trump and his administration would not be able to stop the war, despite this being one of President Trump's main campaign platforms, and peace in the region under the entirety of the former Trump administration, Comer wrote. This rhetoric coming from a foreign leader released in anticipation of a U.S. taxpayer-funded visit about the current administration's political opponent is highly concerning, Comer wrote. The committee is investigating any coordination or communication among the Biden-Harris administration, Pennsylvania's Office of the Governor, and President Zelensky for use or solicitation of use of government property to politically benefit Vice President Harris's presidential campaign. And this is exactly what they did, and this is exactly why they flew him over here. This is the Democrats cheating again. Everybody is split in the United States about what's going on in Ukraine. Myself, I fuck Ukraine. It has nothing to do with us. Russia's business in Ukraine has nothing to do with us, and vice versa. Ukraine fighting for its freedom has nothing to do with this. They're not a NATO member. We don't get anything useful from them. It doesn't have anything to do with us at all. We're wasting taxpayer dollars in United States military might over there fighting because corrupt individuals are in each other's pockets. The Democrats helped to get Zelensky in office in order to kick out a pro-Russian candidate that was already in office. The Democrats worked to help get him in there. They interfered in their elections. Now you've got Zelensky, who is a comedian. He's a coward. He's a scumbag. You see him walking around in fatigues all the time. This guy hasn't spent one day on the front lines firing a weapon. He's literally a comedian. He started his business. I'm going to bring this up so that if you don't believe me, you're going to be able to see it. He was on like Ukraine's Got Talent doing some stupid show with his buddy, pretending to play a piano with his penis while he's wearing while he's wearing an official uniform. He was literally a comedian. Then on a show, he played in a comedy. He played the president of Ukraine. And then at some point, he had backers who said, you know what, you're popular, you're doing really well. How would you like to actually be the president of Ukraine? And then they put money behind him. He ran for office claiming he was going to be a non-war president and he was going to keep peace in Ukraine. And he got to actually become the president of the president of Ukraine after playing it as a fucking comedian. I'm not going to spell this right. I don't care. Let's watch some of this video as Vladimir Zelensky, the comedian. I want to find some of his bits. Where is it? Come on, I want to see him. So this is some from his show pretending to be president of Ukraine. Not the shit commercial. Hold on a second. So for clarification, this is when he's leaving as a comedian and he's running for office. So he's transitioned from the show where he plays the president of Ukraine to now getting the push to actually run for office. So there's a split between both. And before that, he was an idiot comedian on like Ukraine's Got Talent, and he was playing a moron. I don't know if it showed. I want to skip to where we could find that, and it doesn't seem to be in here. And ironically, he talks about the corruption in Ukraine, but now he's a corrupt shitbag that's using all the money we're sending in order to line his pockets. I wanted to find the one where he's playing. Just to give you an idea of this guy's a joke and he's in the pocket of the Democratic Party. Here we go. So Vladimir Zelensky, 2016, pretending to play the piano with his penis on what is essentially Ukraine's Got Talent. Here we go. Mira, bendeja, cabrón, mamá, cara crica. Okay, let's skip this. This is essentially Ukraine's Got Talent. Here's Zelensky, right here. His, their pants drop here. So here's this moron pretending to play the piano with his penis on Ukraine's Got Talent. That's Vladimir Zelensky, folks, right there. The moron, the clown, the loser on Ukraine's version of America's Got Talent. Ukrainians have got talent. These two retards, they're pretending to play the piano with their penis. This douchebag right here is now the president and military leader of Ukraine, coming over here, stealing taxpayers' dollars, and coming over here, interfering in our elections. This scumbag that was just here in Pennsylvania, he's a corrupt piece of shit, put in with the help of the Democratic Party. And he's now running the country over there, begging and stealing for us to win a war that they can't win against Russia. And we're all supposed to pay for it. I wanted to show this and be clear about who these people really are that run for office and get these positions of higher power. They're absolute jokes. They're jokes of human beings who have no real knowledge whatsoever of running a country, watching over your people, making sure their best interests are at heart. None of them know it. And now you see this asshole walking around in fatigues wherever he goes. Have you ever noticed this when you're watching TV? He's always in military fatigues, military shirt, like he just came from the front line. Even though this asshole has never been on the front line in his life, and he's walking around with an entourage of security protecting him 24/7 while his people die fighting, while their villages are destroyed and burned to the ground. But the United States is expected to fight on the behalf of a corrupt scumbag who's just taking our money and splitting it between his administration so they can buy themselves cars and condos and property in the United States when he eventually has to flee after they lose the battle. This is what this is, and this is the reason I want to be so clear in showing this. So he was here interfering in our elections. Trump ended up meeting with him. I know that's a political move by Trump. I don't know that it was a good idea because, you know, Zelensky's working against us, and I know Trump's trying to, you know, do his part and be politically sound, but I don't think you should have met with him. The guy's a scumbag, and we should do everything we can to remove ourselves completely from the Ukraine theater. If they lose, they lose. After that, you know, everyone's talking about, well, you know, this is what we did with the Nazis. We said, give the Nazis what they want, let them take Poland or let them take this territory or that territory, and then they'll calm down and they'll leave all of us alone and we can get back to our lives. And they didn't do that. They kept going. If Russia takes Ukraine, they're surrounded by NATO nations at that point. After that, they're going to be hit from all sides if they try to do anything. They're not going to get anywhere. This isn't the same as placating and giving the Nazis whatever they want. Who gives a fuck, honestly, as a taxpayer in the United States? Who gives a fuck if Russia takes Ukraine? I could give two shits. I'm sorry about the suffering they're going through. There are people suffering all over the world. There are people suffering in the United States currently. I don't care about Ukraine. And U.S. tax dollars shouldn't be wasted in Ukraine. So there's that, and Volodymyr Zelensky interfering in our elections. So, and I went over that story there with you. So let's move on to the next one here. And it's this scumbag, the guy who most recently tried to assassinate Trump at the golf course, Ryan Ruth. This is his scumbag son, has just been arrested on child pornography charges. So this whole family is some of the worst piece of shit human beings that you could ever deal with in your life. One is a scumbag assassin who is shilling for the Ukrainian government. He was over there in Ukraine, but because he was an old moron, he wasn't capable of fighting. So he was trying to get other losers into fighting for Ukraine. And in the meantime, his son's here in the United States looking at child porn. So the son of Ryan Wesley Ruth, the suspect in an apparent assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, was arrested on federal charges of possessing child sexual abuse images. Orrin Ruth was arrested after officials searched his home in Greensboro. You should see this fucking picture. Wait for it. North Carolina, in connection with an investigation unrelated to child exploitation, an FBI official said in court documents. Investigators seized multiple devices from the residence. The images were allegedly found on 2 Samsung Galaxy Note devices. Look at this fucking weirdo. Tell me that any Democrat that you ever see has these same eyes. The fucking crazy eyes. AOC does this. Rashida Tlaib does this. All the fucking mentally ill freakos, they all look like this. Look at that. Like, his soul is gone. What's in there? A fucking demon, something, whatever it is you believe in. This fucking dude is gone. He was never there. Fucking mentally ill psycho wacko. A review of the SD card located in device 1 revealed that it contained hundreds of child pornography files, prosecutors said in the criminal complaint. I imagine he was investigated because of his assassin father that tried to kill the president. These files include videos from a known child pornography series created outside the state of North Carolina. The materials were described in detail in the complaint, which also contained a chat where Oran Ruth allegedly responded to someone advertising the content for sale. He's facing 2 counts of possessing and receiving child sexual abuse material. He was booked into a jail in Guilford County on Monday. Oran Ruth is scheduled to appear in a federal court in North Carolina later Tuesday, where prosecutors are expected to argue for him to remain jailed as this case proceeds. His father, Ryan Wesley Ruth, is charged with the possession of a firearm, while a former felon, and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number in relation to an apparent assassination attempt on Trump. So, really a great stand-up American family. Ryan Ruth did not fire any shots on September 15th, but a Secret Service agent spotted a rifle sticking out of the fence at Trump's golf club in West Palm Beach. Trump was playing golf on the course at the time. Ryan Ruth fled the scene and was arrested later that day. Trump was unharmed in the incident. It was the second assassination attempt on Trump in a period of about 2 months. U.S. Magistrate Judge Ryan McCabe ruled to detain Ryan Ruth without bond on Monday. Ahead of the hearing, the Justice Department released a note allegedly written by Ryan Ruth before the apparent assassination attempt. And this is where he wrote that he was trying to kill the president, and that if he failed for some reason, he would offer a $100,000 bounty for any $150,000 bounty, as seen right there, for anyone that would kill him. Now, this fucking mentally ill piece of garbage probably barely has a dollar to his name. But the question is, where did he get the gun? Where did he get the setup that he was putting together? Who backed him? And he was in Ukraine, stumping for Ukraine to get them help. Is it Ukraine that hired him in order to attempt to kill Donald Trump so they could keep morons like Comrade Kamala in office that will keep funneling them money? Just another show, in my opinion, of the Ukrainian government interfering in our elections and our country and how we run things. And the Democrats tried to pretend that and play that, Russia's interfering, they're doing something, China, and they're trying to help Trump. In the meantime, you've got potentially Ukrainian agents here who are being indoctrinated by them, coming back here and trying to kill Trump so they can try to ensure that Ukraine keeps getting all the help and support that they want. So always the Democrats project onto others what they themselves are doing. So in another segment here, and I'm going to have to wrap up here because I think we've been on for a little bit. I don't know how long we've been going. And I'll do the rest of the show tomorrow because we've got the Harris interviews between Oprah and then her other interview again going to shit. We've got that to get to. And Iran hacking Trump's campaign, Walsh meeting with George Soros, their Open Society Foundation, who actively works against the United States and the world as a whole for fucking up us on our elections. And I don't know, this got switched out on me. I don't know where that went. The attacks in Israel is just tuning up Hezbollah. They killed their one of their head leaders, Hassan Nasrallah. Let's get to this very briefly here. Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Iranian-backed terrorist organization, was confirmed dead on Saturday following an Israeli airstrike targeting him Friday afternoon in Beirut, Lebanon. The terror group confirmed Nasrallah's death in a statement claiming that he was a great martyr who died following the treacherous Zionist airstrike. Treacherous. They're fighting back against terrorists, but they're treacherous. on Beirut's southern suburbs. Hezbollah has fired more than 8,100 missiles, rockets, and drones at Israel since Hamas' October 7th terrorist attack, displacing tens of thousands of civilians in northern Israel who were forced to evacuate their homes and have not been allowed to return. The chief of the general staff for the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, Herzi Halevi, said Nasrallah wanted to destroy Israel. We eliminated him. Nasrallah indiscriminately murdered Israeli civilians and aimed to end this war with the destruction of the state of Israel. We made sure that did not occur, he continued. We eliminated him, and we will continue to grow stronger. Hezbollah has murdered innocent people worldwide, hiding his weapons under the homes of families, women, and children, and turning them into human shields. As we've shown, we will not allow such a threat to our citizens. Halevi said that Israel will continue military operations to ensure that it completely destroys the Hezbollah terrorist organization. And it shows here that he's been eliminated. Joe Truzman, senior research analysis at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, told the Daily Wire that the elimination of Nasrallah will pose a significant challenge for Hezbollah in terms of replacing him and rebuilding an organization at serious risk of decline. He said he believes Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps will intervene to help Hezbollah stay afloat as it tries to avoid falling apart. Hezbollah has the arsenal to threaten Israel, and it does not need Iran to respond against Israel on his behalf, he said. The IRGC can provide strategic guidance to Hezbollah in its responses to Israel, which may not necessarily take the form of rocket strikes or direct military action on Israeli territory. Both Hezbollah and the IRGC possess assets globally that enable them to target Israeli interests, creating opportunities for coordinated operations against a Jewish state in various arenas. So they have been kicking their ass, and I'm here for it. It's absolutely fucking amazing, and I hope that, Israel's doing the job that the rest of the nations have just seem to turn their back on and give up on, which is fighting terrorism. And they're fucking tuning them up. Between Hamas and Hezbollah, they're wiping out their entire network, and it's absolutely fucking great. So in one final part here, and I just want to finish as we get to it by saying that thank you to everybody that stuck with us, that supports the show and watches. I am trying to grow it. We've been doing it for a year, and I've been there are so many dummies that have shows and have that are on X and formerly Twitter that have 100,000 subscribers, and it's amazing to me. And then you have a taxpayer like myself who's trying to do a show and trying to share information with the people, and I'm fighting to get views, and I'm fighting to make the show known. It's amazing to me where the people seem to gravitate to these fucking morons. But for everyone, if you can like, share, support the show, I really appreciate it. Help it grow, help it get it out there. It's a Relief Valve podcast on X. The Relief Valve podcast on YouTube, which they're throttling it, is getting almost no views at all currently. And Matt Ventilator, all one word, on Rumble, because they make you use a name rather than just strictly a show. And this is where you can find all of the show. And I appreciate all of the support and everyone that's following and following along, and any new viewers that we can get. I really appreciate it. So here's two things that I've looked at here, and it's been amazing to me to kind of finish up here. Vietnam vets who are coming out against Trump and supporting Kamala. It's amazing to me. This phenomenon started for me first, before we get these callers who have called in to C-SPAN and said that they're happy that Trump was shot at, and he identified himself as a Vietnam vet. First, I was arguing with some people online on my Facebook. I have some friends who are pro-Trump, and then they have some friends who are pro-Harris, for whatever reason that is. One of them was a Vietnam vet. And we're arguing online, and we're having a debate back and forth, my friend, myself, and this moron. And I'm just saying, it's amazing to me that you're talking about going over to Vietnam to fight against corruption, to fight against communism, and for these people being taken advantage of in their country being destroyed. And then you come back to the United States and you want to vote for Comrade Kamala and Dementia Joe, who are against freedom, They're actively working against democracy, and they want to destroy this country. And you've got these moron Vietnam vets actively stunting for them and wanting to vote for them. And it brought up an interesting point for me because, one of the other people said, well, he served this country and you should respect that. And you should respect the service he put in. And I said, but should I? If you come back from service to your country as a traitor who's turned on your country, should I respect you? We've had this national debate that is taken on more as time has gone on, especially with George Floyd, right? He was a scumbag drug user who died while being detained by the police. The police didn't do anything wrong. The guy overdosed on drugs. But it brought further into the limelight that there are good police and there are bad police, and it's just turned into more of a national conversation for everybody about what police are. You go back 10, 20 years ago, the general consensus, not amongst everybody, but amongst most people, was the cops are good. They do a valuable service for the community. They're serving you. They put their life and their safety on the line, and you need to like and support the police, just across the board. And then as time has gone on, there's been you have the second side. The cops are bad. They target minorities. There are bad ones here too. They're out there to do their own thing and abuse their power and screw people over. And then you have the other side, right? And then you had a third element come in where said, hey, what if there are good police that we should support, and also there are bad police that we should hold responsible for their actions? And then that took center stage over the other two sides that were in a never-ending argument overall. And I've come to kind of find that for myself as well. There are a lot of guys and girls who become police to get that power, get that badge, and abuse the community and abuse their power. They are not there to help you. They are there to have the power and the position and be useless to the rest of the community. And then there are police who are there they go out of their way to help the community. They go out of their way to work with you and be respectful with you. So I've found that there is this area where you can have this discussion. So it's hold the good police responsible. They're good. Let's support them. Hold the bad police responsible for their actions. Let them face justice and responsibility for the bad things they did. Now, when it comes to our troops, you have a similar argument with that. And that was always, again, support them. They've served their country. They got out there, they put their lives on the line, and they deserve respect and all that too. Okay, yes, the good ones do. The bad ones that come home, like these Vietnam vets and others that come home and work against our country and vote against all of us, are not ones that I want to support. They are not ones that I respect for their service. And I have a problem with the suggestion that I should support them and I should thank them for their service no matter what. I don't. If you go to another country and you fight for freedom and you fight to help those people, then you come back here and you vote and act in a manner that fucks over your fellow Americans, I don't thank you for your service and I don't support you. So let's get on to this other part here. This was this douchebag right here on C-SPAN was taking live calls and answering questions. And he had one particular caller that called in. Said a caller to C-SPAN's Washington Journal show Wednesday said that the two men who attempted to assassinate former President Donald Trump had to step up and take the shot to stop the former president. This is a Vietnam vet talking right now, that he's glad that people shot at Donald Trump. A Secret Service agent thwarted an apparent assassination attempt on Trump Sunday by firing shots at Ryan Wesley Ruth, blah, 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 and was slightly wounded in the right ear in Pennsylvania. The caller, who was identified as a Democrat by Washington Journal host John McArdle, identified himself as a Vietnam War veteran. I just want to say I'm very patriotic American. Yeah, okay, dude. I did 20 years in the military, 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded in 1966, went back in 1968. I look at myself and think about we as military men. We killed, captured, destroyed enemy by all means available. The caller, who McArdle identified as Willie, said, I see we let this man Trump destroy America. And I look at it and say, well, these two people have to step up and take the shot. I'm 83 and nothing to lose. So this fucking moron claims he's a patriotic American, even though he wants Trump to be shot. So he's a fucking traitor as far as I'm concerned. This moron did 20 years in the military, went in 66, went back in 68, fighting for freedom. Now he comes home and he votes against freedom. He votes for Comrade Kamala. He votes for Dementia Joe, and he thinks Trump should be killed. This is a fucking traitor. This is not a serviceman that we should honor. It's a fucking traitor. He came back and he stabbed a knife in the back of his country. I don't support this guy. I don't thank him for his service. He's a fucking traitor. The host responds, I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating for violence, are you? McArdle asks, with Willie responding, not violence. I'm talking about defending my country. This fucking retard is calling for violence. He said the two guys had to take that shot, but he's an 83-year-old retard, and he can't do it on his own. So he's advocating for others to do it. A poll by Neapolitan News Service showed over a quarter of Democrats and Democrat-leaning voters believe the United States would have been better off if Trump had been killed. And this is the Democratic Party and the radical left. They keep pursuing the same words. Trump is a danger. Trump is a danger to democracy. Trump's going to destroy our country. They keep saying this in the hopes that more mentally ill morons, like this Vietnam vet that called in, will attempt to go and try and murder him. This is the rhetoric that is coming out of the Democratic Party. In my opinion, the Democratic Party is trying to kill Trump. And the reason that they won't stop this rhetoric and they won't stop saying the things they're saying is because in the hopes of mentally ill morons like that Vietnam vet will continue to step up and say, we need to kill Trump. Let's try our best and let's make it happen. Another moron Vietnam vet. Here it is. Alaska man arrested for threatening U.S. Supreme Court justices and their family members. An Alaska man was arrested yesterday in Anchorage for allegedly threatening to injure and kill 6 U.S. Supreme Court justices and some of their family members. According to court documents, between March 10th, 23 and July 16th, Panos Anastasio, 76, sent over 465 messages to the Supreme Court through a public website that the court maintained. We allege that the defendant made repeated heinous threats to murder and torture Supreme Court justices and their families to retaliate against them for decisions he disagreed with, said Attorney General Merrick Garland. Our justice system depends on the ability of judges to make their decisions based on the law and not on fear. Our democracy depends on the ability of public officials to do their jobs without fearing for their lives or the safety of their families. Beginning on January 4th, Anastasio's messages allegedly escalated to messages intending to threaten harm toward the victims. The messages contained violent, racist, and homophobic rhetoric, coupled with the threats of assassination by torture, hanging, and firearms. Anastasio is charged by indictment with 9 counts of making threats against a federal judge and 13 counts of making threats in interstate commerce. The defendant made his initial court appearance yesterday before U.S. Magistrate Judge Kyle F. Reardon of the U.S. District Court for the District of Alaska. If convicted, Anastasio faces a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison for each count of making threats against a federal judge and a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison for each count of making threats in interstate commerce. A federal district court judge will determine any sentence after considering the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. I don't know why I was under the belief that he was also a Vietnam veteran. It doesn't specifically say here, but you do have another old dumb fuck, 76, calling in and just making threats against the Supreme Court and government officials, because these guys have gone mentally ill and they think they're patriots serving democracy. It's absolutely amazing to me. And Vietnam vets who went over there to fight for allegedly freedom and to save the people there from communism and to support the United States come back here and stab the United States in the back by voting for Kamala Harris and Dementia Joe, and to vote against their country and against its citizens. I mean, I don't know where you go wrong, or their vets that went back, but they were really just leftists all along, and they went back there to do whatever the fuck they were doing. So they've always been that fucked up mind state. I don't really know. I don't know enough about these people, but coming back from, I understand you fought and you earned your right to have your voice in your vote, but if you come back to stab your country in the back, you're not getting any respect from me. I don't care that you served. I don't care how long you did it. I don't respect you as a serviceman or woman, and I don't respect you for what you've done. If you stab your country in the back, that is a direct opposite of action you should be taking as someone who's in the military, in my opinion, and supporting your country. You should support freedom and democracy for your country, not traitorous Democrats that are destroying the country. You've just done the exact opposite of everything you claimed you fought for. All right, so that's my rant for today on the Relief Valve podcast and why it's aptly named the Relief Valves, because it gets everything out. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a couple of things for everybody here. We're going to do the rest of Comrade Kamala and her bullshit. We're going to do the Iran hacking for Trump, Walsh meeting with Soros and their Open Society Foundation and what they do. And then in addition, as I teased in an earlier show, we're going to break into the CIA files and we're going to look into all of their declassified material. This is not a crazy next door neighbor, and it's not a guy who heard a thing from a guy. This is directly the CIA's database and their actions that they've been running for 50 years plus since they've been established. So we'll get into that in tomorrow's show, and we'll start with Project Stargate, and then we'll move forward from there. All right, everyone. So thank you for watching and supporting the show. Everyone that's sticking with us. We're trying to grow. We're on Twitter as a Relief Valve Podcast, on X, and on Rumble as Matt Ventilator, and on YouTube as the Relief Valve Podcast as well. Please like, share, support the show, help us grow. There are other moron podcasters out there who have 100,000 people and they're just idiots. And I'm trying to actually bring information to the people from a taxpayer to the taxpayers. And I'm trying to grow the show, and I really appreciate your help in doing that. All right. Thanks, everyone. And we'll see you tomorrow for the remaining news and the CIA files. Thanks, everyone.